When it comes to celebrities who aren't afraid to push every boundary they've ever known, Valerie Bertinelli has quietly stunned audiences in ways that few people could have anticipated. How did a beloved television star transition into a role that left viewers utterly breathless and a nation leaning forward in their seats? Sometimes, a star's most revealing moment arrives without much warning at all, challenging every expectation and sparking the kind of intense reaction that echoes far beyond a single news cycle. Prepare yourself for a fascinating look at Valerie's most daring choices, yet ones that have prompted gasps, ignited fierce conversations, and permanently shifted public perception. Valerie Bertinelli held absolutely nothing back when she appeared on The View on March 11, 2026, promoting her brand new memoir, Getting Naked: The Quiet Work of Becoming Perfectly Imperfect. Cadillac News. The title alone was enough to make people stop scrolling, but it was the choice she made to match that title with an actual nude photo shoot for the book's cover that truly sent shockwaves rippling through entertainment media and beyond. She explained the reasoning behind that decision with disarming simplicity, saying she wanted to get naked emotionally. Cadillac News, that single phrase reframed everything. This wasn't about spectacle. It wasn't about shock value or tabloid headlines. This was a woman in her mid-60s, one of the most recognizable faces in American television history, declaring in the most visible way imaginable that she was done hiding, done curating, done performing a version of herself designed to make other people comfortable. What made the moment so extraordinary was the contrast it created with the image that had defined her for decades. The wholesome sitcom star the girl next door America fell in love with had stepped fully into a version of herself that was unguarded, complex, and strikingly powerful. She hadn't become someone new. She had simply stopped concealing who she had always been, and the reaction to that choice was immediate, overwhelming, and deeply divided in all the best ways. The boldness on display was not born from a desire to provoke. It felt instead like a long overdue exhale, a declaration of personal freedom that had been building quietly for years. She also revealed during the appearance how she has come to accept her body after a long history of seeking weight loss measures, explaining that part of that journey was not letting her shame be used as a weapon by anyone else to hurt her. Cadillac News. Those words landed with force, because they spoke to something far larger than a book cover or a photo shoot. They spoke to a lifetime of fighting battles that most people never even knew she was fighting. Valerie Bertinelli's journey in the entertainment industry began early and with enormous impact. In the 1970s and 80s, she became a household name through the hit sitcom One Day at a Time, where she portrayed Barbara Cooper with a warmth and authenticity that made her feel like a member of millions of American families. That role defined her for a generation and cast a long shadow over everything that followed. Throughout the 90s and early 2000s, she worked steadily across various projects, branching out into different genres and exploring new characters. None matched the cultural footprint of her breakthrough, but each role reflected a performer searching for something more than simply maintaining her status. She was quietly building the groundwork for a reinvention that wouldn't arrive for years. Her personal life shaped that professional path in ways that were impossible to separate. Her public marriages, her experiences with vulnerability and resilience, and her willingness to discuss those struggles openly in interviews gradually transformed her image from polished television star into something more genuinely human. Audiences began to trust her in a different way. She wasn't just performing relatability, she was living it. Her cooking show, Valerie's Home Cooking, became one of the most important chapters in that evolution. It gave her a platform that was entirely her own, blending celebrity warmth with authentic domesticity and creating a bond with viewers that no scripted role could have manufactured. It demonstrated that she could reinvent herself professionally while holding on to the qualities her fans had always loved. Most recently, she took that ownership even further by launching her own direct-to-fan platform, Valerie's Place, a subscription service that features new episodes of Valerie's Home Cooking, original programming, podcasts, live streams, and exclusive content. Variety, she described it as her digital home, the place where everything she does lives, and where she gets to explore everything she wants to do next. Variety. That level of creative and commercial independence would have seemed unimaginable to the young actress who first appeared on television screens half a century ago. It represents the fullest expression yet of a woman who has decided that the only lane she intends to stay in is her own. But the photoshoot and the platform, as bold as they are, were not the most staggering reveal Valerie brought to the public in the early months of 2026. Buried within the pages of Getting Naked, and then spoken aloud in front of a live studio audience on national television, was a disclosure that reframed everything, not just about her career, but about her entire life. She came forward with the devastating revelation that she was sexually abused at the age of just 11. Cadillac News. It was a truth she had carried for more than 5 decades, sharing it with only a small circle of trusted people, while the rest of the world saw only a smiling television star. She explained that she had been grappling with her trauma for a decade, keeping most of the story to herself before witnessing other survivors speaking out about unspeakable things. Cadillac News. The courage required to make that disclosure publicly in a memoir, on a book cover, on a daytime talk show is genuinely difficult to measure. She did not do it for sympathy. She did not do it as a career strategy. She did it because she had watched other survivors come forward and be dismissed, and she refused to allow that silence to continue. The nudity on the book cover, viewed through this lens, takes on an entirely different meaning. It is not provocative. It is defiant. It is the visual embodiment of a woman refusing to let shame be used against her ever again. The reaction was immediate and seismic. Social media lit up within hours of The View appearance, with fans expressing a mixture of admiration, heartbreak, and fierce solidarity. The memoir's title and cover image, which had already generated considerable conversation before the interview aired, suddenly felt like the most fitting possible introduction to a story of survival and self-reclamation. Press coverage reflected the full emotional spectrum. Entertainment outlets praised her courage in speaking out both about her trauma and about her body. Her willingness to connect her personal history to larger cultural conversations, including the ongoing discussions surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein files, gave her words a political dimension that amplified their reach far beyond the usual celebrity memoir cycle. When the conversation on The View turned to current events, she drew a direct connection, expressing outrage that those who abuse children are not being held accountable, and that politicians who protect them continue to hold their positions. Cadillac News. Her remarks were unfiltered, passionate, and in one memorable moment, partially bleeped for broadcast. The fact that a daytime talk show had to bleep Valerie Bertinelli, America's beloved girl next door, was itself a measure of just how completely she has stepped beyond the boundaries of her old image. The audience that had grown up watching her on television responded with something unexpected pride. Not the nostalgic affection of fans watching a childhood star revisit familiar ground, but genuine, forward-looking pride at seeing someone refuse to be diminished by age, expectation, or the weight of decades of silence. Critical voices existed, as they always do. Some observers questioned whether the provocative cover image served the gravity of the subject matter, or whether it risked overshadowing the memoir's deeper emotional content. Others wondered if the combination of nudity and trauma disclosure was a calculated publishing strategy rather than a purely personal choice. But even those skeptical voices were ultimately engaging with the same central fact. Valerie Bertinelli had made choices that demanded a response, and that is never an accident. To understand why Valerie chose to reveal herself so completely, emotionally, visually, and politically, it helps to trace the arc of her relationship with her own body and her own story over many years. She has spoken publicly about the pressures of Hollywood's beauty standards throughout her career, about the weight fluctuations that were dissected in tabloids, about the long road towards something that might generously be called peace. Her journey has never been just about physical change. It has consistently been described as a holistic pursuit of wellness that encompasses mental and emotional health alongside physical well-being. Holm and Lindsay, that framing the insistence that the body cannot be separated from the mind or the history that inhabits it, runs directly through the memoir's central argument. Getting Naked, in her telling, is not about the body. It is about stripping away the shame, the performance, the carefully managed distance between the public self and the private truth. The decision to pair that message with a nude cover photograph was, by her own account, a deliberate act of alignment. The image and the words needed to say the same thing. Hiding behind clothing, behind a polished author photo, behind any of the conventional tools of celebrity image management would have undermined the entire premise. She chose instead to be as visible on the outside as she was finally willing to be on the inside. Her willingness to engage with her own image on her own terms has shown up in smaller, lighter ways as well, like posting a playful photo of herself in a blonde wig and greeting the reaction with humor. Extra, but the deeper impulse is the same in both cases. She is a woman who has decided to control her own narrative in the full dimension of that phrase, and to do so with her eyes open and her head up. Valerie's choices land within a broader cultural conversation that has been building for years. The entertainment industry has been reckoning in real time with how female performers are treated as they age, with the persistent double standards that reward older men for their gravitas while expecting older women to make themselves smaller and quieter. Her refusal to comply with that expectation is not unique, but the specific form it has taken in 2026 is distinctly her own. The cultural appetite for authentic disclosure has also created the conditions that make a moment like this possible. Audiences have grown increasingly skeptical of the polished, managed celebrity persona. They want to know who these people actually are behind the press releases and the red carpet photographs. Valerie's memoir, and the conversation surrounding it, offers something that polished persona management never could: the sense that you are finally being told the truth. The Epstein files, which have dominated public conversation in recent months, provided a grim backdrop against which her personal disclosure resonated with particular force. She did not simply write about her own experience in isolation. She placed it within a larger pattern of institutional failure and cultural silence. She urged viewers to take action by voting out politicians who have failed to hold Epstein's clients accountable, and emphasized the importance of survivors coming forward with their stories. Yahoo! In doing so, she transformed a personal memoir into a piece of public advocacy. This is the fuller meaning of leaving nothing to the imagination. It is not simply about a photograph or a book cover. It is about refusing to allow any part of her experience, her body, her history, her anger, her grief to remain hidden because someone else finds it inconvenient or uncomfortable. The effect on her public image has been striking and, by most measures, lasting. She no longer occupies the comfortable but limiting space of the beloved television personality who makes people feel safe. She has stepped into something more complicated and more interesting: the role of a woman who has survived extraordinary things and has chosen to say so out loud, on her own terms, with her name on the cover. Her new platform, Valerie's Place, embodies that shift in concrete terms. She has spoken about finally having a seat at the table and owning the table. Variety that is not the language of someone content to exist at the margins of an industry that has long preferred its older women grateful and undemanding. It is the language of someone who has decided that visibility on her own terms is non-negotiable. The response from fans has matched that energy. Online communities have embraced this evolved version of her with a warmth that surpasses even the nostalgia-driven affection of her earlier fanbase. She has become a reference point in conversations about body acceptance, survivor advocacy, creative independence, and what it looks like to refuse the terms that an industry tries to impose on women as they grow older. Valerie's transformation invites comparisons with other women in entertainment who have navigated similar crossroads. Jane Fonda's decades-long evolution from actress to activist to fitness icon established a template for reinvention that refused to treat aging as a diminishment. Michelle Pfeiffer's careful, deliberate cultivation of a career that grew in complexity as she grew older demonstrated that longevity and depth are not mutually exclusive. More recently, Demi Moore's decision to pose for high fashion campaigns and speak with candor about her experiences of aging and self-doubt offered a parallel example of a woman refusing to disappear simply because the industry expected her to. Sharon Stone's public advocacy around aging, identity, and dignity in Hollywood follows a similar line. What distinguishes Valerie's moment is its specific combination of elements: the memoir, the cover image, the survivor disclosure, the political statement on live television, the independent platform, all arriving in close proximity. Each element amplifies the others. Together, they constitute not a single bold move, but an entire declaration of intent, a comprehensive statement about who she is, what she has survived, and what she intends to do with the years she has left. The legacy that Valerie Bertinelli is building in this chapter of her life is one that will be difficult to summarize neatly, because it resists the neat categories that celebrity culture usually imposes. She is not simply a comeback story. She is not simply a survivor story. She is not simply an empowerment narrative. She is all of those things at once, and she is telling all of them simultaneously in the most public and undefended way she has ever chosen. The nude book cover is the emblem of that choice, not because of what it reveals physically, but because of what it signals about her relationship to visibility, vulnerability, and the long work of becoming, as her own title puts it, perfectly imperfect. The lesson she offers is not a simple one. It does not resolve neatly into an inspirational summary. What it offers instead is an example of what it looks like to stop managing the distance between who you are and who the world thinks you are, and to let those two things finally, after a very long time, become the same. Valerie Bertinelli left nothing to the imagination, and in doing so, she gave her audience something genuinely rare, a complete and unmediated look at the real person who had been there all along. If this story moved you, be sure to like and subscribe for more in-depth looks at the celebrities who keep finding new ways to surprise us.